What's up YouTube, Capital G here. So we're looking at the OCG for a quick second, and we're going to be talking about this deck called Performapals. It's like a crazy hybrid of two smaller decks. One of them, I think that a lot of players like myself, the Performapals, we kind of laughed at the deck when we first saw these kind of crazy monsters. We were like, what is this garbage? Is this supposed to be what the new broken pendulum mechanic is supposed to be about? Where are Clee for that? And it's almost like Konami's looking back at us like, who's laughing now? So anyways, the big thing about the OCG was when Konami basically revealed that there wasn't going to be any ban list changes for the OCG list, it kind of meant that every competitive deck from the previous format could instantly transition over. Like, you didn't really have to change much about Necrise or Mass Heroes because Konami didn't force you to, and it automatically meant that you were probably going to see the same decks topping tournaments, and you kind of do, but I would argue that this has probably been the most dominant deck over the last month or so. There was a tournament. It was about 210 players, and it was actually a team tournament where they, had teams of 4 or whatever. And first, second, third, and fourth, like every single team that got those respective places, like they had somebody playing this Performapal deck, and it's incredible because it wasn't just this week. Like, this wasn't really a blip. I've seen in previous weeks there have been players who have been main decking like Breaker the Magical Warrior in here. It just seems like if you have these 2 core engines, as long as it's like a good level 4 spellcaster, you can kind of splash into the deck. So the deck is kind of broken down by its 2 major components. First off, obviously the whole Trick Clown performage engine, which you're generally going to have your Trick Clowns, you're going to have your Juggler, you're going to have Thousand Blades because of the synergy with Trick Clown instantly making rank 4s, probably throw in maybe an Archfiend Eater of Nefariousness, and then you have the full-on Performapal engine. We have some of these cards in the TCG, not all of them. Some of these are going to be released in Dimension of Chaos. There's going to be some in Master of the Pendulum structure deck. This is the only one right here, the Pendulum Wizard. This is the only one where we don't really have we don't really know when this card is coming out, which is kind of stopping us from basically building this into TCG by the end of the year, because I would really like to play this deck and see how it would stack up against Burning Abyss and Cosmos. But until we get a hard release date on this card, I'm not quite sure we're going to be able to build this deck, unless you just want to build it without running this card. And the thing about this deck is it kind of works similar to Ignites, where you can make a Pendulum Zone, you can essentially deconstruct your zone willingly, like blow up your own zone or blow up your own cards with this guy right here, the Draco Slayer, or you can use Wavering Eyes, which really speeds this deck up. And then it's like you just remake another Pendulum Scale, and then you just special summon everything and just wreck your opponent. And one card that really has gone unnoticed is this guy right here, the Trapeze Magician. This card is really good. First off, you can't take, as long as it has materials anyways, you can't take any damage that is less or equal to this card's attack, which is it's generally going to be 2,500. So like if your opponent flips over a Ring of Destruction and tries to blow up a monster on the field that is, like 2,000 attack, well, obviously that's under 2,500, so you lose your monster, but you just don't take any damage. Like, I think that that's pretty significant. Also, if they run over monsters on the field, monsters that you can just pendulum summon back, you just don't take any battle damage. So I'm thinking this card is actually really good. The fact that when it dies, it essentially just replaces itself by getting another Performapal monster, like that's pretty cool too. And so much of this deck is just crazy floatability. I mean, obviously, it having the Trick Clown engine, it's going to be like a rank 4 spam deck. You see every single card in this extra deck except this one synchro. Everything is rank 4. And you know what's even crazier than that? None of the players, I looked at all the deck lists, none of them were running Cyber Dragon Infinity. It's like they're like, we don't even need that card, Cap. Like, this deck is so broken, this deck is so spam friendly that we don't even need that. I mean, of course they're gonna use this guy, they're gonna make, they're gonna stack their materials, they're gonna go into things like Pallades, things that they have no business going into. Of course they can make Shockmaster or Deltaros the old-fashioned way by just actually having 3 monsters. And people might actually look at this little engine and be like, what is this? Because at first I looked at this, I was like Gigabyte, and I was like Inari Fire. I was like, what is this doing in here? But they're additional cards that you can just use to basically just spam the spam rank 4s All of these cards basically have the same effect. As long as you control, I believe it's a spellcaster monster, you can just special summon them from the hand, which means that bada bing, bada boom, you have 2 level 4 monsters. You can go into a rank 4, but Gigabyte actually works with these other 2 because if Gigabyte dies and goes to the graveyard by battle or card effect, then you can get a monster from your deck that has the same stat line as Gigabyte, 1500, 200 defense, which obviously works with these guys. So, you know, the deck does have a lot of synergy, and I knew it was going to happen. This card right here, Traptrix, Rafflesia, I knew it. I knew that the second we looked at this card in that Dimension of Chaos Super League video, I was like, this card is mind-blowingly good. It is ridiculously powerful. I want it in the TCG more than like pretty much any of the OCG exclusives, and it has instantly made an impact. You see, this deck basically doesn't even run any defensive cards. Like, your defensive cards are basically your hand traps, like Maxi and Valor. You're probably just going to wreck your opponent before they can really do much. But the only defensive cards he ran, or this deck really runs, are trap holes, and the reason you run that is because you don't have to draw these to use them. You can just make this card, you can just make Rafflesia, which is really easy because Konami was dumb and they made it generic, so people are going to abuse it. So you go on the Rafflesia, and if your opponent tries to special summon a monster, they activate an effect during that turn of that special summon monster, and you don't have Valor, okay, well, you can just activate Rafflesia's effect. You can copy Traptrix Nightmare's effect, and you can just blow up the monster. Or, and actually, I was playing against this deck on stream. Somebody did this to me, and it was real dirty. You can just flip over like a Traptrix. You can flip over a Treacherous Trap Hole and just nuke 2 monsters. And the chances of you getting both of these in the same game are really low. I mean, your trap count is only 2, so again, you can actually copy this straight from the deck. So this is a really interesting deck. Again, it's spam 4 heavy. It's spam rank 4 heavy, and we're almost going to have everything that we need to build this by about December. Of course, we won't have, you know, access to Lavalval Chain or whatever because that card is banned, and I don't think it's gonna come back anytime soon, like maybe in a year or so like that, but I don't think it's gonna come back in time for the release of some of these cards. This is the only card that's kind of stopping this deck from seeing its full potential in the TCG, but I'm sure there will still be variants. I mean, as long as we have this, as long as we have Wavering Eyes, as long as we have ways of making quick exceeds, we have the Trap or the Trick Clown engine, as long as we have the Trick Clown engine, and as long as we have ways of blowing up our own pendulum scales so that we can just make new ones and special summon them back, like, this deck can be pretty damn potent. So let me know what you guys think. Is this something that you'd ever consider playing? I know this deck is, on paper, it looks like a complete clusterfuck. I'm just going to be completely honest. And when this deck eventually gets to the TCG, assuming that we don't have Rafflesia and Wizard, do you think that this would be a viable deck, and what tier, hypothetically, would you put it on? So anyways, thank you guys for watching as always.